there, welcome to today's Business Growth Club show. We are so pleased to have you here. The theme is growth marketing.
We're talking about actions and consequences today.
It's all about purpose.
Driving business growth with using KPIs.
We're talking money mindset.
The Growth Club, I mean, not to oversell it, but it's so well organised. So yeah, it was totally invaluable.
The Growth Club, coupled alongside with the Masters that I'm doing at Strategic Leadership at the moment, both of those things happening collectively have definitely transformed, and the Growth Club did have a massive impact for our business.
What is it that attracted you to come to the Growth Club in the first place? Let me just start off with that.
Well, because it was the two of you, basically.
Good evening, everybody. Tonight, hello to everybody. Numbers is going to dominate this broadcast here. So we're talking about revenue growth plans. We're talking about that wonderful thing that you need to get your head around, and that's finances, planning, and a whole lot more. Yeah,
we've got a good show planned tonight, and it actually was the show we planned on doing last week. So I'm really sorry that for the first time in all the 12 months that Mahmood and I have been working together, I just wasn't very well, and I'm super sorry about that. And thank you so much for all your good wishes that you've sent me. It means a lot, and I'm on the road to feeling much better. So thank you. And so we've got a good show. So as always, we love to hear your comments, your questions. Janice is in the house. So hi, Janice. It's great to see you. I think we've asked for your address so we can send you your
tea cakes, yeah.
Your tea and cakes. And I'm a bit behind the curve, having not been sort of feeling too great. But we've got 5 key money tips for you this evening. We're going to help you to get comfortable and confident with financials. Really understand the importance of planning, and especially when things are changing so quickly, and really using your numbers to support your business. And that's really kind. Thank you. Richard says, looking good now, Joe. Thank you. Yeah, I'm feeling 1,000,000% better than I was, which is fantastic. So thank you so much. So numbers. And you. Of course, my mood always looks good, don't you?
It's the way I've done my hair tonight, so I think you're right there, Joe. So a couple of things, folks, though. Obviously, if you're coming on after the broadcast is finished, put your hashtag replay on there. Any comments there, throw them in there, we'll deal with them. So we talked previously over the last year about planning. We've talked about different component parts, and we've never shied away from the fact that financials and numbers are really not the only part of your planning process and getting your revenue generated, but actually they play a very important role here. Before we dive into that, by the way, you might see on the bottom of the tracker, we were going to go do a get it done session this Thursday for a number of reasons. We're going to move that back to April 23rd. We are going to honour the early bird price for now. So obviously check it out. We'll give you the links in the notes at the end, but thoroughly recommend that you guys get connected with that and come and join us on that day itself. So yeah, money, numbers is really what we're going to be focusing on tonight.
Yeah, and the dates moved back again. That's my fault. That's just due to the circumstances of the last couple of weeks. So we thought it was sensible to do that.
Yeah, for sure.
We want to do an amazing job for you all. And the thing is about business is we're so busy sometimes thinking about growth and what we're doing. Do we ever really stop and take as much time as we'd like to, as we ought to think about money, how we're looking after it, and how we're investing it, are we spending it wisely, and how we're making it work for us. So Mahmood, you are the numbers rock star. So where do you want to start on all things money?
I think before we start diving into it, I want to sort of people to focus on a couple of things here that's really going to help you in your financial planning, your forecasting, and anything you want to do with numbers. Is for me, it's not the numbers go first, not the finances go first. That comes secondary. Get your story straight, get your story consistent, have a good way of thinking about your destination, your route map, thinking about, as we've said on previous broadcasts, who that customer is, what your proposition is, what your purpose is, and think about that journey that you're going to be undertaking. And if you can describe that and look at it in terms of activities, it's much easier to translate that into the numbers. There's one other thing I would probably articulate. when me and Joe have been talking about this over the last year or so, we've been talking about, things in the toolkit here. So a planning mindset, please do not confuse that with a plan. We're not saying you have a definitive document and that's it. It's about that looking more forward than in the rear view mirror. When it comes to the numbers, though, there's a couple more things I would probably share, and that's about how you see your business unfolding. Get that straight, and I promise you, it's going to be much easier to translate it into anything financial.
So, Mahmood, if I'm a business,
Yeah.
I'm thinking about, well, with Boris's key points when everything's going to open up and change, and I need to be thinking about what I'm going to do business-wise around that. What do you mean by helping, by building that story? So where might I start in terms of putting that together and thinking about the journey ahead and then overlaying the numbers? How might I do that?
Well, I would probably use two things here, Joe. I'd probably think in terms of what they call drivers. So think about the things that have an impact and influence on your profitability and on your costs. So typically, if somebody is looking ahead and they think, this is what we're selling, these are products we're providing, these are the services that we're doing, I would first of all try and group those into some form of categorization there. And then as you thinking, the most difficult number to try and come up with is how much you're going to sell. And we've shared previously about how you can come up with an idea about what you're going to sell. Put that at the forefront. And if you can work on that, and then you're thinking to connect that to what the resources and the costs will be in order to make that sell, make those products and deliver that activity. So I would think about activity that you're going to undertake and then use that as your sort of main focal point.
And it's about ambition, isn't it? It's not necessarily knowing about how much you're going to sell or how many you're going to sell. It's about how many you would really like to sell in the situation that you're in or in the context that you're in. And how do you think people go about making the most of the opportunity that's coming up? Because there is a real opportunity, and I think everybody's starting to look forward to what we're calling bounce back summer. The economy, there's some stuff coming out of the Bank of England, isn't there, in terms of how quickly we're likely to recover. So I think it's about getting on the front foot with that and really being proactive now about putting the foundations in place and thinking about where the opportunity lies for you in your specific business.
Yeah, I think you're quite right there. I think it's a great point you mentioned there. And I remember a model that we talked about when you introduced it to me, actually, about the SOAR model, which talks about the aspirations that you've got. And you've got to look at it in terms of, for me, when you look at planning, when you look at your revenue aspirations, it's about don't be static. Don't think, okay, things are going to continue. What is it you're going to do to make it happen? What is it you're going to invest in terms of marketing activity? And one of the beautiful things about financial planning is when you produce that financial story, you produce that financial plan, you're thinking, actually, we've got a bit of strain here. Things are not going to generate as much cash as we want to. Things are not going to generate as much profitability. We'll go back and challenge yourself. Is what you're investing in marketing going to give you this level of sales that you want? The level of sales that you want, if you're being really ambitious, are you investing enough in marketing there as well? But you're right. The plan reflects your aspirations, your ambition.
Yeah, and sorry, I hope you can't hear the low-flying aircraft that seems to be going over. For some reason, I seem to be in an RAF practice zone at the moment, but never mind. So we'd love to hear from you as well. We'd love to hear from you tuning in around what are you planning to do? When things start to open up more, and what are you going to do to take your business to the next level, or what ideas have you got that you want to share? Are there any questions that you've got for us that we can help you with? And it's also a great time to possibly try a few new things as well. Things are hopefully on the up. Would you recommend trying new things, or do you think stick to your knitting?
I'd probably say a couple of things there. I think it all comes back to your own risk appetite. So if you are a very cautious individual there as well, we've said before, if you stand still, you're effectively going backwards. So I think you've got to take a degree of risk. And entrepreneurs and business owners, we take risks, full stop. Nothing is risk-free, whatever anybody says. So you've got to have a little bit of risk. The degree of risk that you take has got to come back by what you're comfortable with and what you're actually comfortable stretching out. But if you don't try something new, if you don't actually try and dip your toe in the water, even if you do it in a very agile way, you run the risk of actually having a business that's going to decline.
Yeah, and people have, a long time, the expression, the new normal, we're looking forward to the new normal, whatever that is, once COVID has gone away. And what I'm seeing a lot more trend wise is the expression, the new different. And I think that is a much better phrase, because new and different, I know Janice, who's a proofreader, might challenge the tautology of that, but it is new different, isn't it? Because there are things that we're going to take with us and the things that we're going to leave behind, in terms of how this last 12 months or so has actually left that impression on us as customers, but also business owners. So I think that there's some really great opportunity, and I think the businesses that will succeed will be the ones that invest in that personal experience, whatever that is, whether it's Richard's Weldmax business. Sorry, I can't get my teeth in. Weldwax. I gave you a new business name there, Richard. Or whether it's Janice and proofreading or any others. That it's about that personal experience, and it's about using the digital, the tech, the things that we've evolved over this last 12 months and accelerated over the last 12 months, and really putting those two together as a business model and investing in the two side by side, because I don't think the digital will completely go away.
No, absolutely. And I think what we've noticed that, if anything, over the last year, digital has the pace of digital revolution has accelerated things. And remember, it's twofold. It's on the external, what you deliver, how you interact and deliver things to your customer, but also tap into the technology. It's incredible. And I was looking at things the other day about what you can tap into to use in your existing business. So when you're looking for efficiencies, when you're looking for, not increasing a cost base, can you do things more smartly? So, tap into that. And when you think about that, you've obviously then got to make sure, your investment appetite is there to actually make sure that you undertake those investments as well.
Yeah, and those investments can save you money. And I think it's about, with everything, it's about weighing up before you spend that money, working out how much you need to generate in revenue terms in order to get that return. And from a profit perspective, when that payback period is going to be, and what the return on investment is likely to be, how much you're going to get. So really just working those through and spending a few minutes just jotting some sums down on a piece of paper somewhere, or on we're talking about tech, or on a spreadsheet or something somewhere, can really make a difference. So just do a little bit of planning of what you're hoping to spend, what you think you'll spend, what you're hoping to get back, and just really work through, does that make sense?
It does. And I would say, look, a lot of people, I think, get quite phobic when it comes to dealing with their numbers and their finances, because they think, I've got to be a mathematician. It's all a bit very techie, very whatever. It is not. Just be aware that if you are going to put effort and energy and in money into something, you've got to get something out at the end point as well. So whether you measure that in terms of profitability, whether you measure that in terms of cash, be aware of what you've got to do. There'll always be a way to resource to actually do the number crunching there as well. There's lots of tools, resources that you can use here, but you've got to get close to your number. And what I found is that the closer you can get to your numbers, without necessarily wanting to become an accountant, it's very cathartic, it's very liberating, it's great for your well-being, believe it or not. And I just think those people who've got some understanding of what lies ahead, and I know what the financial impact is, they are actually have a greater sense of purpose, a greater sense of well-being, and they get less stressed out of it as well.
A lot of stress comes from us actually burying things and not facing up to things, and actually if we face on things head on, we feel like we can take control of it and we can work through it. And when we're sort of burying our head in the sand, it's about the great unknown, and it's the great unknown that worries us. And worry is a real waste of imagination and energy, so let's use it instead to do some good stuff.
Absolutely.
In terms of some of the incentives or things around, as businesses are starting to get going again, or going to the next level even more, because many businesses have been doing really well still through lockdown. What do you think is around and in place that businesses can benefit from?
Well, you've got the more immediate thing here. So you've obviously got your elects, your local authorities, you've got central government, you have got some grants there. So whether you're looking to actually undertake some investments, they've got these things now called super investments that's holding for 2 years. So that's an extra incentive. You've got obviously what they call restart grants going on. And again, if you're a property-based business, it's there. But, I would probably say I wouldn't focus on where does the money come from. I would actually come up with a financial story, come up with your cash flows. I know me and you are very keen on, profit generation and cash flow is really the two key numbers overall that you need to focus on. Sales, it's probably a bit of a tired cliche. There's an old cliche that says sales are vanity, profit is sanity, cash is reality. Your focus should be the profit that you make and the cash that you do. So there's grants, there's tax breaks, there's incentives, accessing borrowing money, by the way. So some people might be scared of debt, but the debt is there. It's a relatively cheap and quick way to access funding. If there's going to be a likely return 6 months, 12 months from now, it's worthwhile doing it, but factor it into your appetite. And again, check your LEPs, check out our resources as well that we provide. But there are ways that you can oil the wheels and access the money.
Yeah, so when Mahmood's talking about LEP, he's talking about local enterprise partnership. And there are about 38, 39 of them around the country. And each one of those has got a growth hub, something called a growth hub. So if you type into Google growth hub near me, wherever you're based, if it's in England and Wales, then the growth hub will come up, and it's full of all sorts of resources, really, funding opportunities, networking opportunities, training stuff for business as well. So that's really, there's some really good resources there. So Richard's saying, I ran a forecast last week, but the numbers were shocking. Had to smudge the ink to make it viable. Short-term risk, I'm afraid, but long-term large gain. Yeah, so this is the thing, that if you run the numbers and find that you don't like what they're showing you, that's a good bit of information, because then you can work out how to make the numbers better.
Absolutely.
Or if you can't make the numbers better, if you can't find any ways to do that, at least you can plan for that and put some actions in place around it. And I think, Richard, you're opening a new warehouse.
Very soon, actually.
Yeah. So sometimes there's something called a J curve, or the hockey stick. I'm going to try and do this the right way. And it goes, there's sort of this dip, and then it comes back before it comes back up again. You've got to invest before the return on investment comes through, and that might be the case. But how can you really? The challenge is how do you keep that dip as shallow as possible, but also as narrow as possible, so you're spending less time and money getting into that positive.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I love that J curve. I think in terms of anything else, just look at it normally, everybody out there. If you imagine any new product that you've engaged with, when you first open for business or try something new, people don't know who you are. They've got to learn to trust you, understand you. There's typically about 7 stages people go through before they buy something. And in that time, you have to run your business. There's going to be costs going out, but very little people buying from you in that early stages. It's going to happen whoever you are. The length is what you're trying to minimize. Eventually, as people know you, trust you, invest in you, want to buy from you, your ongoing costs are not going to shoot up dramatically. And therefore, at that point, you'll start to make sort of better returns. Typically, they say the first 3 to 5 years, by the way, of any business cycle is don't expect to make significant returns. Therefore, if you've got some idea of cash, and you can finance it, you know what those long-term gains are going to be. As long as you're applying that effort, you will find, look beyond the first few weeks, the first few months, you'll find it's very successful there as well. Obviously, as long as you're delivering and doing what you should be doing.
Yeah, definitely. And, I had a conversation a couple of weeks ago with a fantastic business owner, really fantastic. And I was surprised, actually, and this person isn't on their own, but I'm often surprised by how many people don't know the difference between the function of a balance sheet, a profit and loss, and a cash flow statement. And they are 3 things that are there to tell you something different. So your balance sheet tells you what your assets and liabilities are. Your profit and loss tells you how much money you've made or not, hence the word loss. And the cash flow tells you how much cash you've got available and can you cover your bills and pay out the things you need to pay to stay in business. They're telling you different things. And I think sometimes what I've seen is business owners looking for all the answers in one statement. And actually what you've got to do is look at the 3 different ways of reporting to really understand the numbers, and then put the whole picture together. They're like pieces of a jigsaw that go together.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you right there. I mean, I would say if you're doing this yourself, if you haven't got access to that financial expertise for whatever reason, profit and loss is just a statement of performance. Cash flow is a statement of viability. And your balance sheet is a statement of strength. If you're only to pick 2, for example, I would certainly say all 3 are useful. I would probably focus on profitability and cash flow, and I would probably relegate the balance sheet to the 3rd statement to look at, purely by the nature it's constructed. But look, you've got spreadsheet tools, you've got software out there, you've got expertise out there. For me, there is no excuse not to at least actually coming up with something. And you're quite right, Joe. I think a lot of people focus too much also. I don't know if you found that in your experience. They focus too much about the revenue, the sales they're generating, and they don't actually look what's left over after they've paid out all the costs and paying yourself as well.
Yeah, and I think also sometimes, which is a wonderful sentiment, but a lot of people are focusing on the customer experience without actually costing in the different elements of that customer experience, and actually truly challenging their assumptions on whether or not the customer values those whistles and bells that they're putting in. So fantastic customer experience. We are all for it. Please do it, but do it in a way that is costed in, and in a way that the customer is willing to pay for. Obviously, if you make a mistake or you want to do something really special from time to time, that's great, and you should put mistakes right and invest in doing that. But it's that ongoing thing. You and I have been through some stuff with people, and they've been buying all sorts of stuff, goodies, when people sign up to work with them, and actually none of it's been necessary, and they've been spending a fortune. So really think about, would customers miss this, or is it because sometimes it's about self-confidence, and actually, is it more about me demonstrating how good I am, or is this really adding value? So really challenge yourself on why you're doing some of the things that you're doing, and I think you can find, more times than not, save a bit of money that way as well. So
yeah, absolutely, yeah, great.
Yeah.
I mean, you look. I mean, I don't want to go off at a tangent here, but you look in terms of customers. There's a certain minimum threshold that you've got to meet to satisfy your customers here. Anything in excess of that, you could be in danger of over-engineering something and adding costs when you actually don't get any value back from the customer. They don't really care about it too much either.
Yeah. So that's where it comes back to really understanding, what is your value proposition? What is your competitive differentiation? What really matters to the customers? And if you've got any questions about that, then ask us while we're here on the show. You can ask us tonight. You can ask us next time. You can message us after the show, and we'll help you with that. And of course, that's one of the things we're going to be really focusing on, and you'll get done on that session on the 23rd of April when we have our Get It Done.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we'll work.
Joe, what would you share as a golden couple of tips then for people who are, say, relatively new to the idea of financial planning?
Yeah, I think understand that our attitudes to money are sometimes things that we've learned, and sometimes things that we've learned are unhelpful when we become adult business owners. And it's about really questioning ourselves and saying, is what we've learned about money, is that helping or hindering us? And if it's hindering us, bin it, and replace it with habits and attitudes that do help us. And what helps us is just being really clear about it and facing it up, and getting to grips with money. You don't need to be an accountant and do it at that level, but at least understand how much profit you're making, how you're performing, where your growth is going and where it's coming from, and what your cash position is.
Yeah, I would say that those are great, but I'm probably add a couple of things there. First of all, is the general, as we said, you don't have to love your numbers, but you need to get close to them. So businesses that disconnect from the actual financial and the numbers in their business have a much tougher battle on their hands. And so you need to do things to improve your money mindset. So whether that's looking at your bank statements once a week, whether it's looking through what's going on, getting a familiarity and a connection with them. On a practical tip, by the way, what I would also do is when you look at your business sales, try and cluster them. So think of them in groups. So typically, if I imagine a supermarket or a retailer, they wouldn't just look at the total sales from that space. They'd say, for example, what do we sell in terms of household goods, dairy products? What are convenient groups to cluster things? And forecast and build up your forecast based on those groups there. That way, you will get a better handle on what profitability is being made at that level. You get a better idea of the cash flows it generate, and it's going to be a much more powerful forecast that you come up with. So that's what I would probably share as a tip.
Yeah, and I think, for Richard, I mean, well done on actually running a forecast and, facing on with what's coming up for you. And I think whether you like the forecast or not, when wherever your business is and whatever your business is in, for everybody who's tuning in, it's then around playing some tunes on it and going, okay, so what if I did this? What if I made twice as many? What if I charged 10% more? What if I did this extra marketing campaign or whatever it is, and just, play around with the different levers and see what sort of scenarios fall out.
Absolutely, yeah. So it's about, and that's I would probably add to that, Joe, is those people who, it's like writing copy. When you're putting your first forecast together, because it's a first cut, do not edit as you go along. Once you've got your business story, translate it, get your story coming out. Do not stop as you go along and think, I can't do this. Look at it, first of all, take a step back, look at the whole picture, and then exactly as Joe has said, and I would add to that, challenge your costs, look at it, where are your pressure points, where are the strengths coming on, and you go back and you can revisit. But remember, ultimately, go back to what builds up those numbers, and that's the areas that you want to challenge and sort of look at with more detail.
Yeah, and I think it can be so tempting when you're launching a new product or a service, or you're getting new premises or a new office or something, or some new tech, that to have everything, to have all the bells and whistles and make it the bee's knees, to mix a load of metaphors. And actually it's about cutting back on that and saying, what really makes the difference here? Are there some things that I can, consider adding on later? And the chances are you can probably do without them, and you don't need to spend as much. So maybe start with some fundamentals and make yourself a list and say, well, in 3 months' time, I'll review where I am on these things.
Absolutely, yeah.
Do I really need widget A or, office furniture B or whatever it is, and then review and then make a decision. Because I think when you're doing something new, it's so easy to get carried away and want it to be absolutely fantastic, and it can be fantastic without having everything.
Absolutely, yeah, 100%. So I think, folks, so here's the thing. So you must deal with your financials. If you had to pick one, and I would say pick two, I would say the bare minimum you need to put together a cash flow plan for at least, in my opinion, the next 12 months. If you do nothing else at all, which I wouldn't recommend, you must do a cash flow plan just to give yourself some idea of viability with the opportunities that you're creating there as well.
Yeah, and please do make sure that you are clear on what makes you money, as in profit, and what doesn't.
Yeah.
I was actually reflecting the other day. I was reminded of an incident. For a while, I chaired a PTA. It's not in the area I live in right now. It was in the southwest. And I had to emergency chair it because the PTA was in a significant loss-making situation, and their job is to fundraise for the primary school. And essentially their big problem was they were buying hot dogs and things and then selling them for less than they cost at the cash and carry, and many, many things like that. So, and these are intelligent people. So do make sure, I know you're not the PTA, everybody, I'm just sort of sharing a story, but just do make sure that you're making as much money, and that there aren't those little bits of expenditure just leaking those profits away that you don't need to spend.
Absolutely. And if you want some heavy lift, you want some tools, by the way, we'll share some links with you after the broadcast, by the way. So when you come to work out prices, we talked about break even before, we'll drop some links in for you as well.
Yeah, we will. So, it's really good to be back, Mahmood. It's really good to be back. I missed everything that we did last week, but it was a good decision. So it's good to see everybody again. Thank you so much for joining us this week.
You've done brilliantly. And I'll just tell everyone, by the way, I've imposed on Jo a sorry tax because Jo wonderfully took our own advice and actually looking after herself. And she felt really bad. I hope she doesn't think I'm going to embarrass her here because I want to. She turns up. She's like the Monty Python Holy Grail thing. One arm off, she's going to turn up. So it was really disappointing for her not to be able to turn up last week. So the sorry tax is going on there, and I hope you take it to me. So we'll welcome you back, Jo. We'll see you all guys next week. So have a great week ahead.
Yeah. Stay safe. See you soon. Bye.
Take care, guys.